Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. Welcome back to Tableau Snippet and iSelf Academy YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to continue our video on module number 4, where we talked about how to work with maps and hierarchies and how to create a hierarchy and so on and so forth. In our current video, I'm going to make a scatter plot for the same dimension. Again, we will learn a few more simple logics today, and we will see how to create a dashboard. I wish to create and finish this module in this particular video, but unfortunately, there are a few things which I want to explain you better, but that might not be possible because this video will become very big then. So I'll try to create the logic first, and then I'll try to finish until adding an interaction action with a filter. Probably the highlight option, if I explain them in another short video, that would be nice. So without further ado, let's go back to our data set and see how we're going to use the scatter plot and how I'm going to use a multi-sheet connection using the filter. Here we solved this already once. We're going to reiterate that again. Let's go back to our data set. This is the data set that I've built in my previous video number 8. We are in video number 9 today on module 4. So in our previous video, what we did is we saw the data automatically gave us the hierarchy, and we literally deleted that, and then we recreated that hierarchy a little later. And then how we have created this geolocation here, and then I added a calculated field for the first time for us, and then I just showed you how the calculated field works for us, and then I showed the granularity level of how different dimension of data will come when I use a country level and a state level and even a city level when we go down here. This is what we learned in the last point. I'm going to add a new sheet right now. Before that, now once I add a multiple sheet, if I name them up, that would be nice, like I did in my dashboard video earlier. So I'm going to just add this is map, or I'll say Europe map. The next logic that I'm going to use, this is the first time I'm going to create a scatter plot. Again, when I come back to the scatter plot here, scatter plot allows you to work with the same dimension. Again, I'm going to make some small changes here. Let me show you how I'm going to use this data better. I'm going to add a new sheet for us. I'm going to call this as customer scatter plot. So what I'm trying to achieve right now is I want to know the profit margin that I make from each and every customer here. Again, how do I create a scatter plot? You can create a scatter plot by 2 different fields here. I'm going to use the same field that I've used to create a profit margin. In a profit margin, this is what the fields that I've used inside the profit margin here. So let me just edit this formula. Then I can say I'll take the profit and the sales to come into play. The same, I'm going to use it now. So I'm going to drag the sales to the column and then the profits to the rows here. When I do that, most of the time the system always gives us an answer as an aggregate measure. It's going to give you a valuation as a singular dot. If you want to break them into multiple dots, you can either bring the customer into play. So when I bring the field called customer name here, that's what we are about to build right now. So we are building a customer scatter plot here. So when I drag the customer field to my detail in the marks, my data will automatically split here. That is one way of doing it. Another one is if I don't want to bring in the customer into play, I want to see each and every data set in a granular level. Then I will go back to my analysis tab on top, and then I'll uncheck the aggregate measure out of the equation. By that way, it's going to showcase the data set. Again, let me bring the data set back again to the aggregate measure. Let's add our customer into the list here. So I'm going to bring the customer name to my detail mode here. That way, it is going to give you the same logic again. But I would like to control the data set a little better by adding some colors to it. So this is where our profit margin field will be handy here, or else I cannot able to color them nicely. So I'm going to bring the profit margin to my colors here. You can set up a color in whichever way I want. I always use the red and blue diverge here. So that's the best way of doing it. I think it's automatically taking the red and blue diverge. Diverging, yes. And if you want to set up a particular color steps here, and then you can want to get the data set row better, then you can click the add advanced here. So I want to mark all my negative values from 0.5, and I want to mark all my data the blue at plus 0.5 and apply an OK. That's going to give the data set better. If you want to make the data look even more better, then you can go to shape and then add coloration here, so that way it will show the data set better. And you can make the size a little bigger if you want to, but if it goes in a tougher mode, then we can make it in a different way. Then I can go back to the color and then clear the opacity level here. So now we can see the colors are coming nicely. If you want to keep the shapes as hollow, you can do that. But when you're doing that, remember that you can add a shape borders also better, and you can build in multiple shapes here if you wanted to. So I can create something like this. So probably maybe a data that I wish to use here. I can use all these dimensions that I want here. You can see all the different set of data that you can add here. Instead of showing a normal list, I gave a tick mark here, which makes my life a little more easier. And let me make the tick mark. Okay, let me make this as a diamond here, so you can see the data set comes in place. And then when I do that, I definitely bring the opacity level to the higher part. By that way, it can show the data set better. Let me make it as 85. So you can see the data set in here. You can show the data set different if you wanted to. So I just tried to create a new list. But again, best practice will be different. So I'm just trying everything that I can in the list here. So now I got my customer's ScatterPlot here, which talks about the profit that I made by each and every customer here. And when I place the cursor, the tooltip shows the customer name, profit, the sales that we made to the respective customer, and the profit margin that we have achieved with every one of this single entity here. Now I want to create a dashboard. So to go to the dashboard, I'll use the second option here, or I'll go back to the dashboard here. I'll see a new dashboard here. So if you are looking for that, then I'm going to drag the year up here, and then I'm going to drag my customer below here. Then I'm going to just reduce this size a bit so that I can see all of them. So I can even reduce this by either any one of this effect. A circle effect will give you circle of friend selection. So again, I'm trying to drag this to the right. So I'm seeing all this data set. This list, and then I'm going to just remove all the unwanted fields here. So then I can extract the data set beautifully here. So this is how we can clear out the data. If you feel that the data are not showing up in one single screen, probably you can make this output of the screen a little smaller in your data set here. So we can just make the data set a little smaller on this data set, and you can come back here again, and this is already small. So when I go back to the data set, you will see this very clearly here. But again, if you make the data set smaller, the problem that we will have is we may not be able to get the data set completely shown in the data set correctly. So that's the only reason why we won't normally use this data set in this way. So we will keep the data set as it is. And now my data is not as granular as it is, because it is showing me everything by state, or by country rather. So I'll go back to the Europe map, and then I'll extract that to one more level where I'll go by state here. When I come back here, you can see all the states are coming up here with the data set in the system. So this is how we can see a dashboard. And now I would like to add our base logic here. The logic that I wish to show you in one point, I want to add a filter for the data set, and I want the filter to happen automatically for both my sheets by default. So how do I add a filter? So normally when you add a filter, I'm going to go back to the Europe map and then drag the order date here. And then when I drag the order date to the filter, it's going to ask you a question. So how do you want to filter this data? I know this data has around 4 years of data in it. So I'm going to go by the year in this point. When I give a next, it's going to show you all the list. And whenever I use a filter, I don't want to pick up manually. So I would like to use all the in the list here. So that way it's going to bring, if the data is getting updated, if the data is getting refreshed by added with the new data added into it, then the system will automatically take the list. If you are going to select the data set, then it will only select those years which is available here. It won't select the new year that will be added in the later part of your data refresh or data extraction that you do. Or if you are connecting a live data, then it might not show you that. So that's why I always use all here. I'm going to give an apply and an OK. But this filter doesn't do anything big because I didn't filter anything as such. When I do that, I'm going to just click the filter here, and this will not even appear as a filter for me. So I'm going to say show filter in the data set. Now the filter comes in with a complete list here. And I have to customize this. If you want to keep all year into play, you can do that, because I want to filter one by one, or I want to see all of them at one shot. Then I'll retain the all option here. If you don't want the option, then I can go to the right hand side, click button, and then customize the data set here, and then you can uncheck the show all button out of the equation. And again, I would like to select only 1 year in a point. Then I can make the filter look even more better, either by using single value or a multi-value list, whichever one which you feel it's comfortable. I'm going to use a single value filter here. And then now I can choose the year that I want to add on this list here. So now I'm going to pick up the year 2014, 2011, 12, 13, and you can see that the data are changing here. But this filter at the moment happens only for the current sheet. But this filter will not affect my ScatterPlot at all, because I gave a filter for that sheet alone. If you want to make this filter available for all my sheets, you can do that by just clicking this data set, and then you can go to the filter option, then say apply to worksheet, and then you can either pick up a specific sheet. Again, this is again going to give you the same answer, but I wish to keep the data set as all using this data sources. So whenever I used any of these data sources to create a report, the filter should automatically populate in list here. That's what I'm trying to apply here. So I'm going to say all using data source here. When I click this, you will see a small a data icon is coming up in front of it. So now you can, when I go back to my ScatterPlot, you will see the filter is happening automatically. But again, it won't show the filter here. Again, I have to show filter the data set, and then you can see that that's happening here, and you can just change that to a list here, and then you can remove the all filter option if you don't want. And I'm going to drag and drop this in this list. When I change this to 2013 here, this is not going to affect only this. Automatically it's going to come in my Europe screen, and you can see that the data shows 2013 year of dates in this list here. And this will happen automatically in my dashboard also. And if you want to add a filter here, you can do that. So I'm going to click the drop down in any one of the data set. I'll go to the filter, and then I'm going to just say I want to filter all the years and dates here. So automatically you can see the filter here. Again, the display part will not be that good here, so we will always make the changes that's required for the data set here. So we can add the filter options, again remove all this, because this will not automatically get that formats by default, so we will be changing it in every aspect possible. Let's see what happens if I add a new sheet. When I add a new sheet, and if the sheet is blank, the filter will not come automatically. So now I'm going to add another sheet here. You won't see the filter coming up here until I use any one of this data set here. For example, I would like to know the category. When I drag the category and put the data inside, immediately you will see that the filter is activated here. And then when I just pull the sales here, you can see the sales for the year will come into play. So when I just go back and then show the filter and then drag the filter here, you will see the filter automatically comes for 2013. And then you can see that 2013 is there in our map and as well as in our ScatterPlot here. So until you touch the data set, it will not give you the filter. Once you add the filter, that's going to automatically give you the filter component for you by default. So now what I want is I've created a dashboard and I would like to interact the data dashboard better. This is where I will add a filter option to my data set here. So let me just make this data a little smaller so that I can see the second data set better. And now I want to add a filter to it. You can add a filter either by going to a dashboard and go to the action part and add a filter here. This is the best, this is the right way of doing it. But we have a keyboard shortcut or a shortcut way to do the same logic again. So let me just reduce the height somewhere over here. Yes, let me just reduce the height here. So, okay. let me make this data more adjustable for me. So let me just, yes. So now I can see all of them in one screen. Yes, and because it will be a little more cumbersome, but again, I'm trying to show everything in one sheet. That's why I'm just doing this. And I'll come back to my map, and then I'll go back to the click button here. I'll go to filter option. And this filter option allows me to get the data done that I want to add here. Instead of this is the filter that I've added for my year. I'm going to use as a filter here. So when I use this as the filter, when I click this data set, you can see automatically my data sets are changing here. So what did it do? So now I say in the state, in the country Norway, I want to go for the state sales. And how many sales is happening, you can see that here. And if I want to go back to the list here, so let me go back one step backward. And then I see only the states here. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard here. Then you can see that what has happened in Finland. I can see the Finland filters happening here. What's happening in Norway. You can see that, and what's happening in UK. You can see that all is coming up here. So what did I do right now? So what's happened in here? I want to see that. To see that, I'll go back to my dashboard here. Go back to the action. You can see the action or the filter that I've added using the filter option. How did I do it? I'll redo it again and come back to the filter here. Instead of adding a normal filter here, I use a filter option here. And that's going to give you the list. And then what is the filter actually does here is, when I go back to my data set, and then when I edit this data set, you can see that it is adding the Europe map as my filtering option. The filter option has to reflect in my target sheets by a selection, and it should show all the values here. And we have more option that comes into play. So now I'm going to call this as select filter. So I'm renaming the filter now. And I can do one more dimension here. If I want to add a proper dimension data set here, then I'll go back to my dashboard, go to the action, and then create another action right now. In this time, I'm going to use a filter here. I was trying to put all of them in one video with the filter and highlight here, but again, highlight I need to explain a little bit more. I will add them in the next video. So I'm going to show the filter alone on this video. And then I'm going to say I want to start with the map here, but this time around, I'm not going to use the selection map. I'm going to have a map or have a filter here. So when I do that, what happens here? So I'm going to keep the data set in this list way. And then I'm going to show all the values when I have it over it. And then I'm going to just give an OK. And OK here. Now I don't want to click the data set. When I place the cursor on top, you can see what's happening in Finland, what's happening in Norway, what's happening in United Kingdom, what's happening in Spain, what's happening in Switzerland, and what's happening in Germany. So I do have this in a country manner. As the data set, I want to show them all in one dimension here. If you want to make them in a state-wise manner, then you can go to your Europe map and then make this data a little more granular here by adding the states here, and then go back to the data set. Now it's going to show each and every point of our list here. Again, let me make the map a little bigger because my data set is coming perfectly here. So now I can see that what happens in Berlin, what happens in other states, Norway, Oslo, and then Rogaland, and then Hordland, and then when I come back to this point, you can see Scotland, what happens here, Ireland, Wales, and then you can see what's happening in England. And then you can see all of them is happening beautifully here, and you can just hover over it. I don't want to click any option, so when you hover over it, then you can see that the data are changing here beautifully here. You can try with more filters that I have here, and you can try the other filters we do have on this list. Instead of using a hover or a list, you can select a menu, and then you start using the options of clear the selection, compare either by exclude all values or keep the filter values, and so on and so forth. And get back to me, and if you have any query, you can comment on the below video here. With this, I'll end the session. So because I want to start the highlight option a little better, because highlight option will not work effectively when I try to use it in this data set. So let me put them in another video, which allows us to handle the data better. So hope you guys learned how to work with filters, multiple sheet filters, how to work with a scatter plot today with some sheets in it. And this is Vinod signing it from myself Academy YouTube channel and Tab Snippet YouTube channel. Happy analyzing.